what makes you happy?
I think my friends make me happy just because I'm a social guy. Like, my battery fills up from talking to people, from being with people.
Going to try a new restaurant, new vacation spot, whatever. And everybody is excited and not fighting and getting along.
I come home from work and my wife's doing whatever it is in the house, but then she comes headed to the front door and she greets me with a smile, and the look on her face is, I'm glad that you're home. And
I think what makes me most happy is connection with people and doing life together.
And then what makes me happy is when I can not compare myself to others. I think so often when I compare myself to other people's lives, situations, I am not happy. So when I can just focus on finding gratitude in the people I get to do life with and the experiences I get to have, regardless of what it looks like compared to others, that makes me happy.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the fifth and final part of this conversation that we've been having last month about what makes you happy. I just feel like I should acknowledge right up front at the beginning of our time, at least if you are a regular here at North Point, we have probably trained you to where when there are two people or more on stage, some big moment or announcement or something dramatic is about to happen. That's not the case today, so it can just kind of put your anxieties at ease. But here's actually why we're doing this. So Jen joined our teaching team 4 years ago now, almost exactly 4 years to the day, which is wild to think about.
It's time has flown by.
Yeah. Okay. And Jeremy very infamously introduced you that first Sunday as a seasoned communicator.
Yes.
Jeremy's another member of our teaching team. He meant it to be honoring, and you know what you're doing, and instead you took great offense at that.
Because it's offensive.
And yeah. For years have been explaining how Jeremy called you old on that Sunday and so on.
That is what that is. That is what he did, yeah.
Anyway, she's 4 years more seasoned now, and so she's been on our team for the last 4 years. And so we've been in all kinds of rooms over the last 4 years where we throw series ideas on the wall. This is what we want to talk about, have a conversation around. And Jen will always say, you know, that topic would be a great opportunity to do tandem teaching. And this is what she did for, a long time at Nashville, the old church that she will talk about a lot here. And we realized our staff, speaking of what makes you happy, is just generally happier when Jen gets what Jen wants. So we were like, we should try this and we should just see what happens. So we're going to experiment today. And Jen, if you want to tell us what tandem teaching is, because you're the expert.
Yeah, forever ago, about 2015, the church that I used to work for in Nashville, the senior pastor and I shared together on a particular topic because we just came at it from two really different angles, and we thought it'd be fun to kind of share together. And then what began as a one-off just actually ended up happening pretty much every week. We shared together for several years, actually, and it just created this dynamic because the reality is there's a variety of us on the teaching team, right? And we approach things differently. So we're testing the saying, which is actually a verse from Ecclesiastes, that two might be better than one. We know this to be true with things like chopsticks and socks and jumper cables, and eyebrows. Go home and check. It should be two, okay? But there is a reality that maybe it's not always better. Two may not always be better than one. With things like, two people, one remote control, two toddlers, and one cookie. We don't always know, two we need to talk texts back to back from different people. Not everything is better than one, so we're testing that out to see if two people, one topic this morning could work. We're jumping in, we're wrapping up our series of what makes you happy. And as a content team, we can generally agree on what to talk about. But how we approach it can be really different, right? Because of age, as you've so lovely reminded me of, and do over and over and over. And experience, personality, temperament. There's so many things that make us approach things differently. I mean, we are just varied across our small teaching team as you guys are in the room, right? You guys have a variety of ways that you approach certain topics. And in the foyer too, by the way, foyer people, thank you so much for being with us. Thanks for hanging in there. We are building a building, and we are not building anything, thank the Lord, but because that wouldn't be safe. But we are building a building, it is coming. But we are varied in how we approach really everything in life. And so we thought to wrap up this series, we've been talking about what makes you happy, that happiness isn't something you find, it's something that you form. Spent some time looking at the reality of it's not, you're just gonna like find the way to be happy, or, you know, it's not just like a golden ticket and everything becomes happy. It's habits, it's things you build. It's the way that you structure your life, the way that you shape your routines, the way that you shape your thinking that actually changes your happiness. We've looked at like how to actually understand the word peace, what peace really looks like. We've talked about the difference between control and surrender. We've looked at emotions, habits, and this week we are looking at a topic that we approach differently, but that we are more than familiar with, because we're going to talk about comparisons. And we get compared all the time. In fact, we know you compare us. We know you have a favorite communicator. So what I'd like to do is, by show of hands,
Okay, I'm going to keep moving
I'm
forward.
not going to really do that.
Yeah, no, they can mute you if you push them too hard on it, too, so it's good. Yeah, what's difficult with every series, right, is we could always make every series 100 parts long. Like, there's so much that we want to say and have to whittle down, and one as broad as happiness gets really hard. We wanted to talk about comparison for at least two reasons. One, unlike the other 4 parts of the series where it was like, here's things to build into your life that form happiness, this is a unique one, and this is the thing to avoid. This is the happiness killer. It is the gateway drug, if you will, that if we fall prone to the comparison trap, it will lead to ingratitude, which almost ensures that we will not be happy in the long run, that resentment will build in the long run. So it's unique from that perspective. It's also unique because of the cultural moment that we are in. Granted, it's not a moment, it really is our lives, but when I say cultural moment, I am referring to things like this, all of our technology, our phones, our computers, our iPads, and what that opens up to us in the entire world, that is the internet, social media, all of these apps and platforms, and so on. I will keep calling it new, I think, for the rest of my life, because in the grand scheme of things, it really is new. Like, do you know the birth date of the internet? It was January 1st, 1983. If you are older than 42 years old, then you were born before the advent of the internet.
Thank
My
you.
point is, it's not been around that long, Jen. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like relatively
Not
recent
how it
and new.
feels.
It's like, that's fascinating to think about. I mean, Instagram, 2010, right? TikTok is less than 10 years old. ChatGPT is 2 years and 8 months old, and we're already like, how is it going to take over the world? It's so integrated into our lives. And all of these technologies are more rapidly evolving all the time. And so now, as a result, unlike our ancestors that built meaningful lives and relationships and had maybe their neighbor or a few coworkers or a family member to compare to, now we have the entire planet to compare ourselves to. And we do it. The average American spends 4.5 hours a day just on their cell phone, about 8 to 9 hours a day on our personal technology. So we are constantly taking in inputs and comparing ourselves to, you pick the thing, right? Whatever it is on your list. I mean, you open your phone and think about what happens just 15 minutes of doom scrolling. I mean, you see more than your ancestors did, more insides of homes and more yards to compare yourself to. You see toddlers that are better dressed than you are. You see areas of the planet to travel to that you didn't even know exist. Like, I swear new places are popping up. I already have my bucket list, and then there's all these new spots that I've never heard of because of influencers and where they're traveling and all these things. You see more young, fit, attractive fathers that somehow stay home with the kids and make millions and write poetry, and you're just like, what am I even like supposed to be? I don't, there's so many examples of all these things. And then there's the darker side as well. I mean, you think about if you consume explicit content, pornography, then you see more naked bodies in that time than the kings of old did in a lifetime. And there's just like no frame of reference for me to put into context how that affects our relationships, how our brains are forming, all of the different connections that we are trying to make with each of those. So my question for you really at the beginning of our time is, what's your loop? What's the thing you find yourself coming back to again and again and again? Who or what do you compare yourself to? I'll share some of mine. Jen will share some of hers. For me, near the top of the list is humans over 6 feet tall. All of them, basically. One of them is my brother, my only sibling, my younger brother, who is 5 or 6 inches taller than me. So when you ask the question, like, why does God allow evil and suffering? It's one I relate with. It's been my whole life to have a younger brother that much taller than me. You think about, for me, very simple things, probably anything in the category of like achievement or competency, whatever it might be in that, like athleticism. In the last 5 years, I've tried to sprint 2 different times, and I pulled a hamstring both times. Then I'm just more and more comparing myself to people who are fitter, more athletic.
Younger.
Exactly. I'll end the conversation. I won't even fire back there. So, just so many like simple examples. I think about in my like professional world, I think about, or providing. There's a thing, I think it's in a lot of men, maybe all men, there's this desire to provide. We have friends, actually a dear couple friend, they're both lawyers. We have one who's a doctor, a couple that are business owners, and I chose ministry. And to think about like the experiences I think I'm supposed to be able to provide for my family, and to think about, man, is that responsibility on me or on my shoulders? That's an area of easy comparison for me. I think about the industry that we're in is kind of a unique one, because in most industry, competition is like a good thing, but in the church world, you compare yourself to other churches and it's deemed this very unhealthy thing, right? We should be praying for other churches. So then maybe it's styles of leadership. I have a friend of mine, he was in the group I was in this last year, and Tyler is our middle school director. We've worked together for a long time. I actually worked with him in student ministry back in the day, and I always thought I needed to be more like Tyler, his style of leadership, because he's charismatic, he's funny, he's so witty, like so quick, an incredible host, doesn't matter the size of the room, can just engage a crowd. And I'm like, man, I just need to be a bigger personality like that. Well, Tyler shared in this group, he's like, I've had the opposite journey. I've been like, my leadership journey is trying to own who I am, because I thought I'm supposed to be more like Jordan, less big reactions, more reserved, more stoic, whatever that might be. And we're like, this is crazy. When 2 people are both like, I should be more like the other one, and this happens all the time. I think one of the more recent ones for me, but it's quickly become my world fast, is the world of parenting, because that's been the last 1.5 years for me now. And I always wondered, coming from a student ministry background, like, would those 10 years prepare me at all? Like, would I do anything different? I've seen so many parents live vicariously through their kids and so on. What kind of sports dad am I going to be, or band dad, or whatever it is that he ultimately chooses? And I think I just got my first taste of that a few weeks ago, because Davis, my 18-month-old, we took him to his first swimming lessons. And I use swimming lessons very loosely. It's like 1-year-olds dipping them in the water, getting them comfortable with water. But the first exercise on the first day, there's 7 1-year-olds in the pool, was to blow bubbles in the water. Davis was the only one that could blow bubbles on day 1. Yeah, thank you. The amount of pride I felt in that moment, I'm like, that is my DNA. Now, the next exercise was to dip him under this little hula hoop in the water and grab a toy to get kind of splashed in the face. Davis freaked out and never recovered. We had to go home early, and it was just shame and embarrassment 5 minutes later.
That is your DNA.
Yeah, absolutely, it was. Yeah. So these things just switch so quickly. I don't know, that's some of my list.
I feel like it's probably true for most of us, especially depending upon how quickly you pick up your phone and start scrolling. We probably can't get much more than 2 to 3 hours into our day without doing some type of comparing. It's like it's hardwired into us, like it's just natural for us to do. And I think it feels that way because it actually is. I think it's part of our design for survival originally. I mean, we had to compare in order to know what to do in the world around us. Like, hey, should I eat this berry, or do I compare it to this one? Is that a safe one, or is that one poisonous? Is this animal safe, or compared to this one? Is this animal safe? Is this person safe, or is this person safe? Right? And I think what started as a way to actually be able to survive has now evolved into this unnecessary, constant, oftentimes a spiral, right? That has us miss what's actually in front of us because we're paying so much attention to everybody else's stuff, looks, posts, comments, status, right? And I think that was not the intention of it originally, but now that's kind of how we do our life. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, one of the reasons is if I can measure you just a little bit against me, I might feel just a little bit better about myself. If I can just see what's going on in your life and see how it fits against mine. Are you in the same relationship place than I should be? Is that where I should be? Does your body look like my body? If I can just do that, maybe I'll feel a little better or a little more justified about where my life is. And so we do these things. We have these spirals. We have self-criticism, and then we build bitterness and resentment toward other people, and we write these stories in our head. And none of this is new. I'm not the only one doing this. I would imagine most of us in the room have times where we do this. And it's definitely, we've been doing this since the beginning of time. But quickly, what originally, I think, was designed for survival evolved into something. We see several stories in the Old Testament, just a few moments that I think I just am always reminded of how women tend to compare for sure. Right? I think of Hannah, who is featured in the Old Testament, and she's married to a semi-insensitive man, but she's unable to carry children. And he kind of mocks her about that. And then in that deep ache and that pain, she goes and she's around other women, and the other women mock her for not being able to have kids. And all she is surrounded by people who are able to have children, which is what gave women at that age and era value, worth, prestige, right? What's already a hard enough ache is amplified by comparison. I think of Rachel and Leah, both in love with the same man, and he loved one, and he did not love the other, but the one he didn't love was able to conceive. And the one he did love was not. And so comparison, how they stacked up in their relationship, how they stacked up in status, actually took what was a sisterhood and made it into a rivalry. I think of Sarah and Hagar, who actually the ramifications of their comparison are still being played out today, most of us would say. Like the reality is the resentment, the bitterness, the jealousy, and the comparison between those two women in every facet of their life, their status and their children, actually drove a wedge and created a gap that was felt for many generations and still today. We've been comparing for a long time, and now it feels like self-criticism or shame, discontent in our life. We are not happy. We end up with gaps in our relationship. We go in these emotional spirals, and we end up in this resentment. We are literally living out Theodore Roosevelt's quote that comparison is the thief of joy, and we are letting it rob us of happiness. It takes 2 seconds for me to start comparing, 2 seconds for me to start some things in my head, and then sometimes we jump in the game. I'm just going to have a moment of honesty here with you. We do this thing where it's like, oh, I could never be a stay-at-home mom. I would be so bored. What would I do all day? As if stay-at-home moms don't have things to do all day. Oh, but then we counterbalance that with, I love that you're working, but I'm just called to be a mom right now. That was actually said to me as someone who's always worked, right? As if I'm not called to be a mom because I'm working. Or we do this thing where it's like, I can't believe she's 45. Look at her in that picture, look at her body, which either means I'm down on myself because I don't like how I haven't taken care of myself, or I need to work out harder, or I'm just like kind of insinuating she might have had some work done. We do the same thing when we look at houses, when we look at marriages. Oh, well, you know how they can afford that vacation. Or, I know it seems like their kids are perfect, but they're probably hiding a bunch of stuff. We are so quick to do this. And when we don't say it out loud, because that would be crazy, right? We just say it inside our heads, mostly to ourselves. I'll never look like that. My marriage will never look like that. My spirituality, she is just so much further along than me spiritually. His career is so much further along. I am not, or thank God I'm not, or at least I am, and we fill in the blank all day long. We are quick and clever and brutal with our comparisons, but it's costing us our happiness and it's creating gaps in our relationships.
I think the cost to our happiness of playing the comparison game is like two sides of a coin, right? Because on one side, you are missing out on the joy and peace of the happiness you would be experiencing if you weren't playing the comparison game. The flip side of that same coin is that you are actually adding chaos and complexity to your life and story because of the ways that we respond to whatever we perceive that gap to be, wherever we think we should be or what we should have accomplished or who we should be, and so on. I mean, this is a small list. Maybe you've experienced some of these things here or multiple of these things. But when I think about withdrawal, for example, when I have a story in my head of I'm not enough or I haven't accomplished, and I think of the pain of that or the loneliness of that, some of us, we take a step back in our relationships. We disconnect. We get small. We get quiet. We do one-word answers. We don't engage with the people we care about most. For some of us, it's numbing. I don't want to feel the pain of that, and I could give you, any long list. You know what a lot of the examples are, but I don't want to sit in that inadequacy that I feel or insecurity that I feel or comparison game that I'm playing. Maybe it's denial. Like maybe there is actually a real opportunity for you to take a step and see more health in a relationship, take a step in your faith, grow personally, but because I don't want to look at it and I don't want to admit there might be a gap, I actually stay stuck in whatever current rhythms I'm in. Could be defensiveness, could be something where we constantly push back in order to protect ourselves. We push back on others when we feel vulnerable. We flip the conversation onto them to not put that spotlight on that thing where we don't feel enough or don't want to talk about. Oftentimes, we'll just overcompensate. Workaholism on that list is just an example of overcompensating. It's, I will show you, I will work harder to neglect of my health or neglect of my most important relationships, but I'm going to prove to somebody, to my boss or to my dad or to a stranger, or to whoever it might be, ultimately that I am enough. For a lot of us, what we go to is shame. For me, this is the area that I've done the most work on in the last decade of counseling, and this is when you take the comparison game and the stories that you tell yourself and you take that on as an identity. I mean, just think about what shame is. It's the idea of I am blank, I am not enough of whatever blank, and that's all comparison. Like in relation to what? To what kind of spouse? To what kind of parent? To what kind of Christian, right? I mean, that's in comparison to something when we do that shame narrative and then we take it on as an identity. And in my experience, again, I don't think this is like an all men thing or all women thing or anything like that, but in the circles I run with and the guys that are my closest friends, I think we tend to internalize these things and not talk about them when we're doing the comparison game or we feel like we're not keeping up somewhere. And so we either go to numbing or we go to overcompensating and we're like, I don't want to share that. I don't want to put that weight on somebody else. But at the end of the day, it's killing us from the inside. We're shutting off what it feels like to be fully alive. We're on a path to burnout, perhaps, because of the weight that we're carrying. And then we get labeled with things along the way. We get called things like, oh, he's immature, or a little boy, or just hasn't grown up, or be a man, or all of those things. And I don't think it's so much that we're weak as much as we are stuck in shame. And shame is not something that we can just get out of or will ourselves out of all on our own. It might be one of those things on the list, maybe it's something broader, but you can see it's entirely unhelpful to play the comparison game.
There's this moment where Paul, a writer in the New Testament, an early church leader who wrote a lot of the New Testament, is writing this letter to a group of people in Corinth because Paul is being compared. They are comparing him to other leaders that are coming through town, and they're comparing, is he as authoritative or is he as eloquent? And Paul writes to them because he's heard about these comparisons. And Paul's at this understanding that, like, hey, you can compare me all day long, because he doesn't jump in the game. He just kind of calls out what comparison does. Let's look at that together in 2 Corinthians. Not that we dare to classify or compare ourselves with some of those who are commending themselves. I'm not going to jump in the game. But when they measure themselves by one another and compare themselves with one another, they are without understanding. They're not seeing anything clearly. That comparison is actually getting in the way of what's actually happening, what's the reality in front of them. See, it doesn't take me long to go ahead and write out my comparisons when I start scrolling or I hear someone talking about someone else. But 9 times out of 10, I don't actually know that person, right? Like I might know them on the surface, but I see that picture from that vacation and I get envious. I have a lot of travel envy, or the family looks like they're having the best time. Anybody ever taken a family vacation? Anybody ever posted the photo of when it went crazy, right? Because we don't actually know what's happening, or I compare a financial status of someone and I have absolutely no real clue of what's going on in their finances. See, when we do the comparison game, we can't see clearly. We are without understanding. We most likely don't know their story, or maybe not even the story of that moment that we are measuring against. But we end up getting distracted. It's hard enough to see our own life or the life of another really clearly, but when you add comparison to it, you're going to be misled because it's not what's actually happening in front of you. And I think it can be tough, and we can just be so easily distracted. I think of like when a toddler, something happens to a toddler, or they don't get their way and they just throw a tantrum, and you're trying as a parent to just calm them down, right? Just to stop and get them to see what's actually in front of them, what's really happening. Or think about it if you go to a major city and there's a horse-drawn carriage and they have those blinders on the horses, right? And that's so that they don't get spooked or distracted by what's going on around them. For me, I need God to literally do that with me. God has to almost take my face in his hands and say, stop. this is not what's actually going on. There's a proverb that I love that I've been using it for years, but it's a big part of my life. It says, let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths of your feet and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn or do not look to the right or the left, and keep your foot from evil. Proverbs are just a collection of wise sayings, and this wise saying is saying, hey, when you keep looking this way and that at so-and-so's life, or how so-and-so has accomplished this, or how so-and-so looks, or how their family looks, or how their kids behave, or where they went to school, or who they're dating, and all that stuff, when you're looking to the left or the right, you're not actually looking at the path in front of you. You know, if you ever tried to learn like to steer or to drive like a boat, a motorcycle, even a vehicle, there's just a law of physics that where your eyes look for some reason, your wheels will drift in that direction. Like where you look is where you will go. And this proverb for me is the way the writer is like taking my face and saying, hey, that's not actually your life. When I come home and I've been over to someone's house and their house is like, I'm not good at decorating, but some people just have like this natural gift, and you go in their house and you're like, oh, and you don't think, they are so good at decorating. You go, I am so bad at decorating. Like immediately, you're like, why can't my house look like Hobby Lobby? You get and you compare, and then you go to their backyard, and our backyards are insane now, right? And you're like, oh, I gotta put in a fireplace, put in a bigger TV, I gotta build this thing. Now it's a sport court so everybody can play pickleball, even though I hate pickleball. I mean, this is the spiral that we go down. And there's times where God is like, stop, just talk to me. Don't look to the left or the right. Just fix your gaze directly ahead. But this idea of like, hey, then just look straight and stop comparing probably isn't that helpful. We're going to need actual clear handles on how to do that.
Yeah, I think because in a practical sense, we can't just tell ourselves, don't do that, and then it works. We need something to go along with this. And I feel like the goal you're trying to picture in your head is to train consciously. Like you're going to have a set of habits that you do on purpose repeatedly, so that you respond unconsciously in the moment or the trigger when you see the thing or see the person the way that you would want to, right? Because that really is what comparison is it's an unconscious response when we see that thing or see that person. It's not something we're really making an active choice or decision. So you're going to train on purpose. And I think a couple of categories might get us started to see like, what would this look like if we're going to prioritize some of these. I think the first pillar, if you will, is I would say you have to combat comparison with identity. I think this is the starting point. If you have never answered the question, who am I, then you're normal. That would be most people. I think that is the starting point, though, to this conversation, is you have to know what your value is rooted in, what your meaning and worth is rooted in order to know that when the circumstances around you change or all those arrows come your way, all the potential comparison opportunities come your way, your value and your worth is not on the line because you know what it is that you are rooted in. If you are already a follower of Jesus, then you have actually answered that question before because our identity is rooted in him. As a child of God, we are loved by him. We are who he says we are. And now your life's work is to come back to that truth on a daily basis and to let that sink from your head to your heart. It's not like you just struggle with comparison less because you're a Christian. Sometimes we're the worst at it. But it's the idea to say, I'm going to come back to my identity every day or every morning. And as that becomes more firmly rooted, I'm ultimately going to be able to combat this more effectively. I love what Solomon says in Proverbs. And Solomon is so interesting. We looked at him a couple times here already because he had gone to all of the grass is greener opportunities, right? One of the wealthiest men who has ever lived, all the power he could ever want. And he's like, here's the end result of it. Let me tell you when you go chase all those things, what happens. And he says in Proverbs 14:30 that a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. A heart at peace is somebody who knows where their identity is rooted, who has a firm foundation that is not shaking with the wind, that knows their value and their worth and knows they're ultimately not alone in whatever life throws at you. Envy, that building resentment of I am owed or I deserve or someone has wronged, that ingratitude that grows inside of us, that is the path, that is the highway to unhappiness. He says it rots the bones. I think it literally will rot relationships. It will rot our own personal peace and happiness. Sometimes this has a literal effect on our physical bodies and physical health the longer we live in that resentment, the longer we live in a space of ingratitude. That's why I say it's the starting point. You have to answer the question of who am I? That might be, end of the conversation for you. The second step from there, if you have answered that question, is gratitude. This would be the second pillar, is cultivating gratitude. And similar to just don't compare, it's also not helpful to say just be grateful. This is something that you practice over time, because the more time you spend consciously focused on what it is that you have to be grateful for, the more that is your subconscious reaction when all the comparison triggers come your way. I love this quote. This is an American monk. His name is Brother David Steindl-Rast, and he says, "The root of joy, or the root of happiness, is gratefulness. It is not joy that makes us grateful. It is gratitude that makes us joyful, or that makes us happy." There has to be some kind of conscious effort and regular rhythm in your life where you're cultivating gratitude in your life, whether it's one thing every day and every morning. We did an exercise with our staff in this past year that all of you could try. We gave them 10 minutes, and we said, write down as many things as you can in that 10 minutes that you are grateful for. The goal was to get to 100. If you've ever tried to write a list of 100 things that you are grateful for, you're probably going to get through 5 or 10 pretty easy. You'll have to think on your way to 20, maybe 30. Beyond that, once you're in the 40s, the 50s, you are already getting nuanced. You're thinking about small little details. And if somebody was video recording you as you did this exercise, they're probably going to be able to watch your body change. You're going to have a small smile that starts to grow across your face. You're going to feel the warmth in your chest. That is experiencing gratitude and both sides of our brain as you do an exercise like that. But it's cultivating that regularly. Jen's actually going to give a version of that that's not in 10 minutes, but that you can do over the course of a lifetime, kind of beefed up. But we have to have a version of that gratitude that we're cultivating. And the third pillar might seem a little bit counterintuitive on the surface, but I would say is community. And you might be like, wait, people are the ones that I compare myself to, so this only adds fuel to the fire. But I think it looks a little bit more like this when I say community. It's what the author of Hebrews is talking about when he writes in Hebrews 10. He says, let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, but encouraging one another. That encouragement from people who know you, who are able to speak life and love into your story, is one of the fastest ways to break down those repeating loops or those false stories or narratives that we have in our head. It normalizes things. It lets us know that we're not alone. It gets us re-centered when the train has kind of left the station. We need people in our life that know us and can speak truth lovingly to us and encourage us and let us know they've been in some of the same spaces. I think I would say it this way. My kind of like version of that Hebrews 10 statement is we compare from a distance, but we connect up close. Yes, we do compare ourselves to other people. It takes other people for that comparison game, but we compare on social media. We compare from across the room. We compare with people we haven't talked to in a while. But the longer you're investing in a relationship, the more you're sitting down and, hey, let's just talk. Let's have coffee. When you're doing life regularly, you're in community with somebody, and now that empathy thing is being created, and you're asking questions, and you're learning about their struggles and their anxieties and what they're worried about, and they can look at you and say, hey, I've been there. That's normal in this season. That's normal in this stage. That is so connective, and it's so powerful in combating this comparison game on a regular basis. This is not something we can fight on our own or in isolation. In fact, if that is you and you're like, that makes sense, I don't know how to find community, this is actually the perfect time to be having this conversation, because next week, our community groups, both long-term and short-term, open for this group season. We only do that twice a year. There are hundreds of you that have already filled out interest forms on our website for community. So as a plug for a practical next step, next Sunday is a really important opportunity for that. But I would say those are the three kind of starting point pillars: identity, gratitude, and community.
I really do think that the more we can just get still, kind of quiet our thoughts, get some time with God in the mornings and just be still, comparison does kind of wane. It doesn't have quite the grip on us. But just a few things that help me, they're just nuances to what Jordan just shared about, is one, just start by having an honest conversation of what are your comparison traps? What are the sites that you get on, and that's where you look at that and you feel worse about yourself? What are the places that you scroll and, the inputs that you observe, and you just really like start to be critical and judgmental and shaming toward others because you're comparing. Like, you got to know your traps and then work to avoid them. And the earlier, the better. Maybe there's certain conversations, certain apps on your phone that you just need to limit. The next one is, and I didn't grow up in church. I wasn't a Christian in my teens or as a child. Like, that came later in life for me. So I realize that when I say this next one, it's going to sound like a little maybe legalistic or old school, but there is something to be said when Jordan mentions knowing your identity. There's something for me that has been really helpful in memorizing scripture. Mainly because like if I don't have something else to put my eyes on, I will just rest in my own ideas and thoughts, which are not always the best. So even just like employing some of the verses that we know, like I know for me, I just went on vacation last week. We went to the beach, terrible thing. And you're looking and I'm either shaming myself or I'm shaming them, and I'm just like trying to deal with that. There's something to let me just go, okay, Psalm 139. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I probably have to say that about 18 times before it even remotely sets in. Or when I go and I have that, that travel envy, or so-and-so took a vacation or did a thing or went on this trip, and I'm like, Sal, you got to go make more money so we can take more trips. When I spiral like that and we go to someone's house and I'm like, my house doesn't look like their house, all those kinds of things. There's something about Psalm 46 that just like, hey, be still. Be still and know that I am God. Just be still and know who I am. Be still. Stop. Stop your thoughts. Or even just that proverb we just looked at, like don't look to the left or the right, but just fix your eyes directly ahead. There is something about memorizing those things that help me focus on what is and what is truer than my opinions or my judgments against myself or others. And the others is just a different layer of what Jordan shared with the idea of gratitude. And just because I recently started this, it's been kind of funny. There's this concept throughout Christian history just called 10,000 things, right? And it's really attributed to the psalmist, who just talks about how there's 10,000 things we could be grateful to God for. And then in the 1990s, there was a book about it. And then Matt Redman wrote a song called 10,000 Reasons later. And then I'm reading the book, The Good and Beautiful God, and it mentioned this 10,000 things again. And so I decided I'm going to make a 10,000 things list. I will probably die before I am done. But I'm trying. And to Jordan's point, it's been interesting. It's been this journey of I started, I was like, yeah, I'm thankful for Sal, thankful for my kids. I mean, I was a little more thankful than that, with my affect. But then it got into then I started to be thankful for actually even things from my past that I feel like God has healed in my life. And then because I'm in the 200s, I think early 200s now. And then I thought I have found all these really sweet random things. I saw a ring of my coffee cup ring on my Bible the other day, and I was like, I love that. I also love this thing where the AC's on, or there's white noise and it just stops and it does this thing in your hearing. I wrote that down. I wrote down Windex, right? I also got a new slushy machine. Stop, it's crazy. I love it. I'm slushying everything. And I'm writing these things down, and then I've got some friends who are now doing this with me. And so I'll get this text. I got this text from a mom the other day that's got littles, and she just said, I love when I find a random Lego piece in my minivan. Or I love the reality of sun shirts because then me and my kids don't get burnt. Right? These little things. And the list, it's going to take me forever, but every morning I sit down and I just add to that list, and it does exactly what Jordan said. I find myself smiling. Because what that does, guys, is it has you stop worrying about what you are not or what you don't have, and it fixes your eyes directly on what is actually in front of you, which is actually, by the way, your real life. God has you on a path, and he's put things in front of you, but we get so distracted looking to the left and right through comparison, but it's robbing us of our happiness. And so even just slowing down enough to be thankful makes a big difference.
Think as a whole, this has been a really big conversation, not just this part today, but if you zoom out to all 5 parts of this series, and you're thinking about in part 1, and we looked at this Jesus roadmap to happiness and what peace really looks like, and part 2, Jen talking about letting go of control, the huge emotions conversation in part 3, some of us to feel more, others of us to realize feelings are not facts. last week looking at all of the different habits. I mean, Buck hit every area of life. And then this comparison trap today, I think leaving the series a little bit, it could be like, okay, so to be happy, I've got to download a feelings wheel at least, if not spend thousands of dollars on counseling. And then I need to make a list of 100 things, or did they say 10,000 things?
10,000.
Which was the list, and how many, and there's so many like next steps. How do I keep up with all of that? I think the encouragement is to say our bottom line for this entire series has been happiness is not found, it's formed. It is not a grass is greener. It is not a circumstances changing. It is much more the internal formation and habits of our lives. And so the question is, what's the one thing walking away? Whether today was your first time and first part of this conversation, awesome, or if you've been here for multiple parts throughout, what's the one step that you can take leaving the series that starts to form that experience of happiness, gratitude more fully as you move forward? Maybe the step is to go watch other parts of the series. If you haven't been here for all of it, you can speed watch it. That might be a starting point, and you find your thing if you didn't hear it today. But that's kind of the challenge, is to find that one. This is a lifetime journey. What's the one thing that will help you form this experience of happiness? Because what we believe at the core is we have a happy God who does desire our happiness. It might be a little bit counterintuitive how you actually get there, but he's very clear. And he gives us a roadmap of what it looks like to participate with him and experience that fullness of life with him. And I think it's something he desires for each and every single one of us, and something that's possible for each and every single one of us, regardless of where we are at in our story currently. So Jen, I feel like if you'd be cool with praying for the happiness of everybody in the room for the rest of their lives, that would be a great way to end.
Okay, no pressure. All right, let's pray. Father, we recognize that envy or comparison rots the bones. We understand that comparison is stealing our happiness, robbing us of joy. But we also understand that it can be pretty difficult. Or we have so many things coming at us all day long in so many different ways that it can be so easy to look to the left or the right and miss what you have actually put in front of us. Take our faces in your hands. Help us to fix our eyes directly ahead to you, to be secure in our identity, or to take steps toward getting there. Not to even just consider community, or to take steps toward getting there. And to practice gratitude so that we see where you actually have placed us. But we're going to need you to redirect our eyes over and over and over. In Jesus' name, amen. Guys, thank you so much. We'll be back next week with one person.